Dr. Bustles,
Here.
Mr. Brennan,
Present.
Mr. McDowell,
Yes.
Mr. Duval,
Present.
Mayor Rickaman.
Here.
Thank you.
Reverend McDowell, you say a few words before we break into this deep discussion, and Mr. Drafts gets up there and shares some little words of wisdom with us.
Creator and most merciful, we thank you for this day and for the manifold blessings you bestowed upon each of us. You've blessed us with life, health, and strength. And because of that, we are eternally grateful. Be with us now as we brainstorm together, allowing this city to continue to expand and grow itself. We ask it, we claim it in your name. Amen.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Duval.
a moment of personal privilege. We have with us two reporters from the Carolina News here today, and I just wanted to give them a shout out. These are the students that do a broadcast every day. And 7 years ago, when I got on council, I started getting these phone messages from weird zip codes and all, from area codes. And I realized that they were the students calling to get an interview. And so now that I'm downtown, living downtown, I'm 2 blocks away from the communication school, and I do frequent interviews. I did one this morning.
We have them on every show.
Sure you do.
That's as frequent as you can get.
Howard loves the media.
You know Howard's shy, he's afraid of the press. He doesn't like talking to them.
But these students are professional.
All stations, all printed, you name it, he's
All
available.
times.
At all times.
The reason,
After 9.
The reason I get all the press is because I answer my telephone. And,
You're retired.
yeah. But welcome, and y'all are as professional or more than some of the professionals that we have. And I
Who are they?
appreciate what y'all
Who are
do.
they,
Oh,
Howard?
yeah, because he answered the phone.
Who are they, Howard?
I can't remember all the names.
I'm Lydia Blackstone. Nice to meet you. I know some of you also. Thank you for the shout out. This is Lauren. Yes.
Good to meet you.
Welcome, ladies, and thank you, Mr. Duval, for always being forward-facing with the interviews. We don't even always know, and so we appreciate you.
We also
Not always
need
accurate, but he's available.
to, well, but we also need to wish our senior citizen a happy 80th birthday.
All right, is it?
Today?
Just a couple days ago.
Oh,
Yay for 80.
80 is a big number.
that's
Yes,
a
it is.
blessing.
Oh, we gotta go out.
Yeah.
When was it?
Thursday.
Oh, I didn't even know.
When you reach 70, they say 70 is the new 50. When you reach 80, they don't say anything.
Except they ask who your insurance agent is.
Child student.
It still must be a new 80. 'Cause
Child
I
funeral.
see him, my parents, your mom, I mean,
Check
they,
this box.
yeah.
Oh,
The
Lord.
new 80 looks good. So y'all are very active, and that's a blessing.
Hell, I just try to make it through the week.
Me too. I'm looking to enjoy life like that one day, so. Well, Mayor and Council, we are, as I keep saying, tracking on our budget journey, and today we are taking up the Columbia Police Department. We thank you for the attention you gave to Columbia Fire Department and a different set of issues and a different set of analysis and some decisions that are gonna have to be made with that. Chief Holbrook sent a great memo to you all in preparation for today's discussion. I hope you read that, because we're looking at this as kind of, they're a little, I would say they're in the phase after, what we went through with them, which is similar to probably what we're going through with fire now. So we're kind of staging it out, and this phase of the Columbia Police Department's journey is more about opportunities, we think. There's certainly some challenges that they are overcoming, and we all know the profession for public safety has its challenges nationwide. So our city, our capital city, is no different, but I do think we're learning to think bigger, more creatively, put that attention on recruitment and retention and some different strategies. And so that's a big chunk of what Chief Holbrook wants to talk about today. He mentioned in the memo, I sort of look at it like this council helped us set the foundation, the infrastructure's in place, the pay plan is amazing, that's been implemented, the one car, one officer program is well underway. Those are sort of the infrastructure pieces that need to be in place. Some of the things you haven't heard about that they've been doing since then has to do with these wonderful, diverse faces you see in this room today that have become the face of Columbia Police Department's recruitment efforts internally. But we know, as we're doing with our marketing effort and our RFP citywide, that they need to have some value adds, probably with some recruitment and retention strategies where they're bringing in experts in how to do this. And so they're gonna talk about some of that and how they complement what they're doing internally with these other efforts and how we can help them with that. And then I know the chief has talked to you in passing, and I think y'all asked for more about some other impacts that affect their workload. And some of those things might be policy-driven decisions that have to change. Some wouldn't happen overnight because we need maybe the state legislature to embrace some new thoughts about some of these things, but some could maybe happen overnight. I need him to talk about it, so I have a good indication, if y'all are ready to dip your feet in that water and us push forward with some of those novel things, to include wrapping up a discussion on special events and how we handle special events in our city. I think you'll probably be enlightened about what all we do, not just the police department, but citywide, from public works to fire to parking services, and the labor intensive effort that goes into a very active city that you all have helped build on weekends. The mayor was talking to us yesterday about his last weekend. I know some of you all were out and about. I mean, it is amazing to give you a snapshot of what happens in our city on any given weekend in particular. So we'll get started. I'm just here for the ride today. I'm
Note
letting
to
them.
everybody who's listening, don't tell us there's nothing happening in Columbia, South Carolina.
That's right. So Chief Holbrook, and I know he's gonna introduce his team.
I will. I was going to do that later on, but Dr. Bussel's already chided me for not introducing, so I'll just do it right off the bat. Major George Drafts, longtime member of the police department, over 30 years. He's the major of our administration. Rebecca Robinson, she is one of our faces in recruiting. Ashley Maddox, another beautiful face in our recruiting unit, and maybe not as pleasant to look at, but equally important is Sergeant Harry DeLage, and he also goes by Trey. They're doing a great job, and they're a big part of this presentation today.
I think Ashley deserves another shout out. I forgot because I hadn't seen her, but I love me some Ashley, and she, I want to say, retrieved a wedding ring several weeks ago that got a good little bit of press for a young lady that was in distress. So y'all do all kinds of things, right, Ashley?
That paid it forward right there for sure. That was something. And not many people could fit in a culvert like that either, so that was good. Yeah. So, Ms. Wilson, thank you for that tee-up, great introduction. Mayor, council, it's a pleasure to speak to you today about three really important areas of focus for us. I want to echo what Ms. Wilson said. First and foremost, this is my 9th year. The support that I've received and our department's received from council and from the city managers, it's been unwavering. And through the good, the bad, and tough situations, and it's just it's never faltered, and I appreciate that. Absolutely, foundationally, you all have given us everything we need to be successful, and it's really, the ball's in our court, I think, to capitalize on that. Whether it's the, incredible pay plan that is well underway now, or our fleet improvement, which is, continues. As quick as we can outfit them, they're coming in. We're waiting on, we've already ordered another 28, and we're well on the way to one person, one car, and we're really getting rid of some aged fleet. And that's we've talked about vehicles for years and years, and that continues to be an important area of emphasis for our officers, and we think that again helps with recruiting and retention. You've helped us leverage technology. As we know, we have to do things smarter and better, and with less resources. So that technology has been a huge shot in the arm. And then I always try to put things in perspective anytime I speak to you all, and things that, as we're having this discussion today, that I really just don't want us to ignore is, we're still recovering. And what I mean by that is, as a profession, we're still recovering nationally from some national issues involving law enforcement, really everything following the George Floyd incident. We experienced our own setbacks here with a couple of days of riots, but how it's impacted us between the 60 additional days of protests we have in conjunction with COVID. The nationally, law enforcement just hasn't recovered, and we've kind of followed that trend. Nationally, we've seen 47% increase in resignations and 19% increases in retirement, and we've kind of followed that trend. So it goes, I think it speaks to what we're talking about today. And then, as Ms. Wilson stated, and I always use the line, we're a capital city. We need to look like a capital city and act like one. But with that, we're very unique, and it's hard just to compare us to another city of our size. We've got the university, 5 colleges and universities, trauma hospitals. We've got state government, which brings just something new every day, it seems like. An incredible amount of events and sporting events, and again, it goes to our discussion about special events, and then a growing homeless population that has been a strategic focus of this council, and we're still tackling with gun crime. That's a lot. That's a lot to do with a department that has been struggling for staffing. So with that said, we'll jump right in.
Chief, as you're transitioning, I think one of our council members is curious about the titles of these other individuals that you have working with recruitment. You introduced them, but I don't think you said their titles.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Rebecca's a corporal, Ashley's a master police officer, and DeLage is a sergeant.
There's a lot of institutional knowledge there with them too.
Very much so. If you start here and go around the horn, it's going to be over 100 years.
We didn't want that to go understated. So.
Just a little bit older than Howard. It wouldn't take but one other to make 100. Wouldn't have to use all 5 of them.
With interviews.
So I'm going to start with staffing with an update, and I'm going to hit on our current staffing, and talk about this workload analysis that's underway, and how that impacts region realignment and some alternative solutions. So a snapshot of our sworn personnel, as you can see, we're just shy of 100 positions short, and that's a very alarming number, a staggering number. Some good things. Our diversity stands about 41%. We're very proud of that. Our lady representation, our women in law enforcement, is about 20%. And we're very committed to our 30 by 30 initiative, which we hope to have a representation around 30% by 2030, and that's tracking well. We've just recently hired 2 certified officers, and again, acknowledging the pay plan, I think that's had an impact, and we know that as we continue the hiring process, anytime we can snack a certified officer, it has an immediate impact for us. The bad is, as I mentioned, is our 99 vacancies. We are seeing some good trends, and I'm going to get to this in some of our next few slides, but our applicants are better. Last year, it took 17 applications to get a hire, and this year we're on a ratio of about 9 to 1. So that's good, and it really comes down to math at this point, and that's why we'll talk about the importance of applications. Earlier this year, we embarked on a workload study using our staff along with a consultant. It's called the ISS agency. They're out of Charlotte, and with the help of our crime analysts, our GIS folks, and our 911 center, our IT department, we've really been doing a deep dive into how we're policing our 137,000 people on 100+ square miles. We have 4 regions. We have, are you doing that or me?
Well, you didn't move it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
As you want, this is the side.
We have 4.
Is this the side you want? She said yes.
We have 4 patrol regions, or 4 regions and 30 patrol zones. And that's that our current staff is responsible for. We've examined our call data. So we're looking at calls for service, the types of calls, the time spent on the calls, the response time, and we're factoring in the number of officers, their time off, whether it's sick leave, annual leave, their time in court, their training time, and the results have not been surprising. If you factor in all that time with the current staffing, there's, as we've talked about a lot, they're going from call to call to call. There's 7% of their shift work is downtime, allows them to do something other than just going from call to call. That impacts morale, it impacts performance, obviously with just mental and physical fatigue, and that impacts retention. The optimal ratio is 1/3 answering calls, 1/3 doing your reports from the calls, and then another third being proactive community policing. So we've got as we finish this analysis, we've really got to figure out how we manage the current workload and look at some alternative responses.
Chief, real quick, so where are we if the optimum's a third? What are you saying? Where's our percentages fall?
I'm saying we have no free time. We have 7% free time versus we need 30%.
90% calls.
Yeah. So we've got to look at some, kind of out of the box thinking a little bit on how we might be able to ease this workload. And I have this slide just to kind of illustrate. These are categorized as our top 25 calls. I'll start with the special property check. So you've heard me talk a lot about the property checks we do every morning, especially in the business, the downtown corridor. A lot of that deals with the homeless population, clearing, parking lots and porches and, just nooks and crannies and parking decks. And that has a huge impact on workload. Our alarms, the next one you see circled, we answer just over 11,000 alarms. 95% of our alarms are false. So that's residential, that's hold up and business.
What's the difference between residential and commercial?
It's
Breakdown.
it's about half.
It's about 50-50.
Yeah. So I'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. Our mental, our responses to people in mental crisis is 3,400. That does not include it is inclusive of mental transports. We'll do between 800 and 1,000 mental transports a year. That's where somebody has to be taken from the hospital to a mental health facility. Auto braking delays, That's, somebody has their car broke into, they find it, they'll call the next day or sometimes a few days later. That's over 1,600. Most of them are unlocked. We respond to 8,000 collisions a year. You've heard me mention that. That's a responsibility that we have along with the Highway Patrol, and that's just for comparison, that's something that the Sheriff's Department doesn't have to respond to. They don't do any traffic responses or investigations. We do 8,000, 2,000 of those are on private property. And what I mean by that is you're at a you're at the Publix with tight parking downtown, and somebody backs into you and minor damage, no injury. We respond to 2,000 of those.
Because all of these don't need sworn personnel to handle, correct?
Correct.
And I know we've had this conversation, so, it may be helpful for those who don't know. I mean, we've had conversations about what we can do to take some pressure off our sworn personnel and alternatives. And, especially the points you circled seem to be, I mean, most of those are very time consuming.
Yes, sir. So my thought process for this discussion really would be, what are we statutorily required to respond to and do? And then what can we look at from maybe a shared responsibility with our public, a social contract with our citizens. And first and foremost, if you look at just the alarm calls, we have to change that behavior. And, it's not about being punitive or being heavy-handed on fines, but that is the way I think is the only way to change that behavior. We have looked at some software recently that we work with IT that's compatible with our CAD system. This would be a little to no lift for us in terms of resources. It's going to require a modification of our ordinance to really reestablish what triggers certain notifications, like how many alarms do we want to give a business or a resident before they get sent a letter. And then it would be a graduated, fine system. Obviously, the goal is that they just correct the faulty alarm, or they hold their employees accountable. A lot of times what you see in the, especially in the morning and in the evening, is people come to work, they set off the alarm, new employees, they set off the alarm. A lot of times it's a hold-up alarm, which requires an emergency response, which is dangerous. It's putting our officers at danger and the public at danger in that response. And again, it also, in my opinion, human nature creates complacency. If the officers are responding to an alarm, 95% of the time it's false. When they get to that one that's not false and your guard's down, you could have a tragic outcome. So I think that is something that is in front of us. I think we can deal with it, responsibly and fairly. And I think it's time we really considered doing that. Yeah.
I just had a question. So as far as the false alarms, those are more repeat offenders? Is that what the bulk of the numbers are, or?
Repeat offenders, yes.
And is that something you could outsource where a private security could handle? I mean, right now, if I did quick math, it's about 200 calls a week. So, I mean, is that something that based on where we're challenged in recruitment and hiring because of the atmosphere that we're still in, is that something that you could relieve? I mean, I know putting in this for the repeat offenders, but you're still gonna have a bulk of calls. And it sounds like a lot of those, is there a way to maybe work with a private contractor to handle that?
As far as a
on
response?
dispatch? Yeah, checking the property, because you got property checks too. So if you took those loads off, would that be an alternative to keep our guys and gals that are,
Sworn.
sworn?
Sure.
Taking care of-
I don't know that we could necessarily do that on an alarm call. I think if, so with the ordinance, once you hits a certain threshold, obviously there would be a fine, but at some threshold, if they're failing to correct a problem, then there would be a no response. You're not going to go anymore. So that would eliminate that.
You're still gonna have all those others, because I mean, it just seems like this is an age-old issue. It seems to be to me, even with all the technology today, it seems like we've had this discussion before. I just trying to think out of the box. Is there a way to relieve some of that?
I think with property checks in general, absolutely. I think that is a shared response that we could come up with some probably creative ways with some of our partners on the mental health side. And I think that is certainly.
I just think we gotta add more things to your toolbox to give you all the flexibility as we continue to push to recruit. And I'm hoping
Yes, sir.
that there's a period of time where people understand, and they want to get back in law enforcement.
So
The 2,500 escort calls you have, are those for funerals or are those to taking people to the bank or what?
both. A lot of it is bank runs, walking maybe walking employees to a car at night. Some of it is funeral, but it varies.
Chief, is the code enforcement team, are they sworn officers?
No, sir.
So they're not, but they do a lot of the functions of law enforcement as it comes to obviously responding to.
There's some limitations to what they can do, but they are a multiplier for us in a lot of situations, especially with events now and traffic.
What defines their limitations?
Really arrest powers and not carrying a sidearm.
So could they do reporting for some of these circles you have here? Vandalism reporting, delayed auto braking reporting?
Well, my goal would be that we go to a mandatory online reporting. Like a portal where if you want to, most of that is insurance.
yeah.
Most of that is insurance related reporting. We already have some online reporting, but I really think in some of these no suspect, no solvability factors, more insurance reporting, we need to look at just a mandatory online reporting.
I think that's why a lot of people call the police though, because they feel like, if it's not documented, then they're gonna have a problem.
Right. And honestly, we want to know about it because that, we want people, it may even indicate better crime trends for us to be able to, have different deployment strategies. A lot of times you'll hear at community events, somebody's car got ransacked or whatever, and they're like, they didn't take anything, I'm not going to call. Well, we really need to know about that because that's not going to be the only one on that street or, so, sir.
Chief, let me ask you a question relative to your mental health issues. Is that all inclusive of all mental health issues? Not only the transference of folk from the hospital into a mental health facility, is that all inclusive of the Halleck community? What's involved there?
For the mental health call for service?
Yeah.
It does include our mental health transports from hospitals. It's not going to capture our transports to the rapid shelter. That we wouldn't classify that. We would classify that as a transport for homeless services, but not for mental health. Recognizing that probably most of those clients are suffering from some type of mental health related issue. So kind of along the lines of what the mayor was mentioning. So, what are some things we could potentially outsource? We're looking for privatizing or outsourcing our mental health transports. There is some models of that are underway in the state now. We're talking with one of our vendors that helps us with the facility securities, and that's something we.
Yes. You're talking about outsourcing. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. So the mental health transport, private property collisions that I mentioned, where there's no damage, there's a requirement to exchange information. That would be something that, that I wouldn't want to stand here and say we're tapping code enforcement to do that, but that does not necessarily need to be a police officer, for sure. It could be some civilian entity that would respond to facilitate that exchange of
It's
information.
literally just a standard form,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Is there an agreement in place that there's a lot of state roads in the municipality, as you know, that we as a
72%.
CPD, if the state road's within the municipality boundaries, then CPD is gonna take it and not the troopers?
Yes, sir. Statutorily, we have to.
Okay.
And again, that's where, I think this body would potentially be able to, impact things that might mitigate that.
But at the county level, that requirement's not there?
They're exempt from it statutorily,
Absolutely, huh?
right? And then, I mentioned we have 8,000 collisions a year, and in the 90s, we had 4,800. Now, you could argue we have, the population is a little bit more than it was in the 90s, but I would suggest that it's, more driving behavior. I know the mayor talks about this frequently. I'm a super champion of this. If we could somehow pilot a red light program or camera program, I think it would be a game changer for our city. And
I gotta say, I think it's time for the state also to look at the cell phone. Look, in Georgia, they will pull you over and give you a ticket if you're on your phone while driving.
Most states, yeah.
We don't have that, and I guarantee you can relate the majority of these collisions to people on their phone. You can tell the person in front of you when they're on their phone at a red light. You
Yeah.
know exactly when they're on their phone for
Because they
their
sit there for
delayed
10
reaction,
seconds.
yeah, this and that, and they gun it through, or they're not paying attention as the lights change and this and that, but, I do think that, but these are type of things that we need to advocate as well, but, red light cameras would be helpful. I know there's people against it, but when you work an accident, is it safe to say you spend an hour and a half just working one accident?
it varies. It's, some of our, traffic unit officers, a lot of that's been automated that has helped speed that up, but I think that's, 60 minutes to 2 hours, depending on the difficulty of the intersection and the number of cars and all that stuff.
Then how much court time is wasted? Because I've sat in traffic court and almost 95% of the cases before the judge get dismissed because nobody shows up because the insurance companies have already settled it. So our officer just spent the whole morning on that day there to just watch everything dismiss.
Right. That is certainly not an efficient use of time. And again, that factors into the whole formula of court time and how that means there's not an officer in the
field.
patrol zone. Yeah. So again, these are things that are underway. This is in many jurisdictions. So it's whether it's a false alarm ordinance, it's outsourcing some of these services. It wouldn't be something necessarily unique to Columbia. It would just be us, making some policy decisions, at the direction of the manager, and then tweaking an ordinance, and then of course any influence we can have from our state elected officials to, for some consideration for the red light camera project, I think would be, again, a behavior changer. And it's, the programs I've seen, they're civil, they're not criminal. So it kind of takes that argument off. It's the person responsible is the person that owns the vehicle. It doesn't matter who's driving it. So,
So with these outsourced, y'all have a plan that you present and could look at? Because the one thing I do want to make sure is that as we plan to look at some of the, especially private property, maybe property crimes and other things where you're using that we have that person also making sure that they're responding. Because I know it's easy to put in on the computer, report it, but people still want to know somebody got it and saw it and how we have that second part to it. Because no sense creating more phone calls,
Right.
but we need to make sure as part of whatever your plan is to address that, that there's follow-up. There's a way that people get acknowledged that it's been received. And if something comes up, hey, thank you very much, you know, you're helping us solve a neighborhood crime or whatever, which is why that information is so important.
Yeah, good point.
I think that's why it's important, the portal system, developing some type of
Trace
consumer
your-
city portal system where things are, you know, you assign a ticket, you assign a work order, whatever it is, you know, things come in, they get assigned certain things, and then you can follow up on your own.
And make it easy for people to
Yeah,
track it.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the important thing is, and I think you're right, that you gotta, you know, people, if they don't want to be involved, they need to be involved. And so, but I think most people want to be involved, they just don't know how. And they do want to know that what they've done is being followed up on. So I think
Chief, the software
all
that you
important.
use, is there an additional layer to unlock that capability? You know, we talk about the whiz-bang stuff that Columbia Water uses and all the capabilities there. How difficult would that be?
For online reporting or the or
Following the ticket.
Whatever we all bring forward.
I don't, you know, I'm probably not the expert to ask that. I don't think it would be difficult because it's in place in lots of jurisdictions. I think it would just be seeing what some best practices are, some of the, you know, top software and see what's compatible. And I mean, our IT folks, I mean, they're solution driven. I know they'll figure it out. They've been great to work with, you know, with our false alarm discussion. I mean.
Well, I think
got
you
right
know,
on.
there's so many jurisdictions that are in the same situation and have done some of these, so we can learn from them. It's not like we're reinventing the wheel, so.
There was, I can't restate the numbers to you, but when this software is called CryWolf. Probably one of the largest jurisdictions that uses it in our region of the country is Charlotte. Their numbers dropped dramatically after, they've been using it for, I think, 10, 11 years now. It had an immediate impact on their alarms.
So would you say the prisoner and mental health transport, those seem like pretty low-hanging fruit that we can make that change pretty quickly? But from a budget perspective, is that where you would need us to consider, or have you all kind of started working that out?
Well, outsourcing does have somewhat of a budget impact. So we would certainly, you know, do our due diligence on that, present that to the manager for some consideration. This is the perfect time to do it, and that's, you know, that's why we're talking about it today, is because it would have some budgetary impact, but it would, the question would be what would our return on investment would be, and that would be, in my opinion, increasing that workload, decreasing the workload to increase the percentage of time to be able to do proactive, which gives you, the officer, a better quality of life.
100% agree.
Yeah, I think that's
100% agree.
The mental
Something we
health
can move forward.
transport is a state law requiring municipal governments to do that.
Yes,
So
sir.
we might have to go get some legislation.
But does it say that it has to be a sworn officer?
Right.
I don't know if it's,
Or it could be like
it's,
someone that represents
Yeah.
the local law enforcement agency, right?
I don't know the answer to that question, but, I remember when the Sheriff's Association.
Trying something alternative, but I have to look it up. Where's our in-house attorney?
I think it would be worth
it does have
pursuing that this cycle if you can, and seeing what city manager thinks and bringing it to us, the two transport things, because Alvin Glen is far. Takes a lot of time,
Yeah.
so.
The alarm situation, I think we could require that if you have an alarm system, it has to be answered first by a private company before it comes to us.
That's
Well-
usually how it works though, isn't it, Howard?
Well, yeah, a lot of people have ADT or whatever it is, or a CS.
A lot of it already goes through that vendor that the you know, the resident or the business is with, but they still dispatch on it. If they don't get, you know, if that homeowner or the business doesn't call and say, you know, tell them that I'm not there, or that was an accidental trip or something like that, then they're gonna go ahead and dispatch.
So you're saying they don't actually come on the camera and tell the burglar to run away, to get out of here?
I'm
like
sure
on the-
there's
on
some
the
systems
commercial?
like that. I don't know that all the
You could pay
burglars are
extra for
listening,
that.
is the problem.
That it's not covered in your $25 a
They say
month
$29.99 a
subscription.
month.
So the next area I want to talk about is recruiting. I already introduced our recruiting team, and I did have their years of service. Trey was 20 years, Rebecca was 11, and Ashley was 7. Great balance. They've all had different assignments. They really just bring a good balance to the, and different personalities too. You know, every person that we hire, I've interviewed before, you know, before we ink the contract, if you will. And one of the things that I always ask is, tell me about the process and how are the recruiters? And I'm not just saying this because this was our handpicked new team, but I have not had a negative comment yet. They really talk about how they stay engaged with the applicant from start to finish, because they really got to push some people along. It's the oddest thing, you know, somebody's applying for a job and you're having to really, you know, push them to get paperwork in, and or they haven't heard from them. And that engagement is what we're seeing is more critical now than ever, especially with our younger, you know, applicants, but they're doing a great job. Always ask about the process. Where is there, you know, was there any delays? Is there, you know, any areas of improvement? And we're just, I think we've really kind of hit our sweet spot on that. And again, it's just getting more applications to, you know, to be busy.
And I think a part of this time that we were sort of laying the foundation for the process changes was seeing where you could streamline. I mean, you don't have to go into all that in great detail, but I think a good bit of that occurred, working with city HR as well, where they can help. But also, to your point, Chief, there's just certain things for the nature of this job that you have to get back from applicants. That's
Absolutely.
different from-
I'm gonna hit on some of that punch list and things that we've identified, especially with our certifieds, that we can waive. So any time we can identify a way that we can speed up the process, we're doing that. And I think that's important for you all to know. We also have 2 full-time investigators that do backgrounds in-house. They're both former police officers that are retired and came back and operate in that role. And we have 2 part-time people that do backgrounds, and they're former police officers too. So they know what when we get, every once in a while, we can get a backlog, and we outsource that, so we don't have any delay in our background investigations. But one of the things that I think is very, very important about us doing in-house backgrounds and having that capacity to do that is they know what you need, what they're looking for a Columbia police officer. They have that institutional knowledge. They know the neighborhoods in the city, and I think it's just it's a better background package. This slide is not so much about the pay plan, which is absolutely exceptional. This is a snapshot of what we're advertising to encourage lateral transfers, to encourage people that are sworn with another agency, whether it's a Midlands agency or somewhere else in the state and even out of state. This creates a pathway for that lateral hire. They can look and see, based on their tenure, their type of certification, their education, where they would come into our pay plan. This, you know, our pay plan in general, and this took a minute to construct, if you will, and we wanted to make sure that we were valuing our current employees, not devaluing that, but also recognizing, you know, work history and certifications outside. So we have found a good balance there, and that's what this slide.
How does the
Sir?
how do you deal with the out of town and folks from different regions, Midwest, Northwest, Northeast, where we're seeing a lot of influx? how do you sell that to them? Because obviously their pay scales are different, but their cost of living, everything's different than what we do. How are we projecting that to
So-
those folks? You know, instead of a sign-on bonus, are we saying you got a move bonus? You know,
We haven't done a move bonus, but I'll also say that we have not taken anything off the table. Like if we have a situation where we have several people from a certain area, we try to get them in town, do all their business on in one weekend while they're here. But one of the things that we've talked about is we go to this next phase of recruiting and marketing, which is some of the pop-up recruiting we're going to do up
Yeah.
north. I think something that we are considering is helping facilitate financially a trip down for somebody to do the process, to create some incentive. And we've also got some really successful examples of officers that are currently here that are from up north. I hate to keep referring to it as up north, but they can't be everywhere. So we're going to have to create some ad hoc travel teams that can go do that, whether it's Philadelphia or New York.
nobody retires up north, so why start there? You know, that ought to be your thing.
Right. So, but what we see with our applicants from up north is they do their research too. They know what our cost of living is. They know what our weather's like. And oftentimes they've had a family member that has retired south. And so they've talked up just the region. And, as soon as they get a hold of them, they close the deal. They do a great job of, personalizing that. So we got to increase some opportunities there. And I know that's something that you've
Well, I just want to
pushed us on.
continue to encourage y'all to do things that are out of the norm, because that's what sets us apart. And that also to ask us for whatever you need.
Yes, sir.
I mean, y'all don't hesitate, and I think every chance you get an opportunity to touch somebody and they understand about Columbia, I think they're gonna wanna come here.
This is a snapshot of how busy they've been with career fairs this first quarter. As you can see, they've been all around. We've really tried to capitalize some of our recruitment at some military installations. Right before Christmas, they also did a visit to Camp Lejeune. They've hit Fort Benning, and they've been down to the Citadel. We talked about putting VMI on the next trip. So I think, and we've hired several people from the Citadel too. Always keep Mr. Duvall up to speed on that, and that's that's a great
He
homegrown.
wants to start doing private property crime reports when he retires.
We've got a place for you.
I gave you a recruit, and I'm gonna talk to the ladies about her.
When you go up north, have you looked at like Naval Academy and some of those other military schools as well?
We have not done Naval Academy.
I know
We got a good hook here though.
Yeah, there's a big hook right there.
What? Oh, that's right. It's West Point. I'm sorry.
There too.
So this is kind of a by the numbers look. And as I mentioned, if we look at last year and the number of applicants, our ratio was a 17-to-1 ratio from applicant to hire. This year, we're tracking at a 9-to-1 ratio, and I anticipate that to continue to improve. And I think that's the trend I wanted to point out to you. I think that improvement is because we're competitive with pay and some of our incentives now. What we've got to figure out is the departures. Just to give you an example of the 14 departures, 3 were retirement, 3 left law enforcement, 1 was a termination, 1 was a line of duty, or 1 unexpected death. Officer Ryan Hart is 1 left to be the deputy chief in North Myrtle Beach, one of our inspectors. That was a big loss. And then we had 1 highway patrol, 1 York County Sheriff's Department, one to Richland, and one to Lexington. So really 4 to other agencies. The other ones are those things that we can't control. What we potentially could control is those 4. And again, the overriding reason is I can do something, have more time closer to home, less work. I told you that
How many of those are from North Region?
North Region takes a toll on us, no question about it. Yeah, we, 2 of them, yeah.
Not as bad as I thought.
Well, that was this year. We lost several last year, though, from North. I mentioned 2 of our most recent hires were certifieds. I hope that is a trend that continues, but the ones that we've seen that have left for another agency, that average age is, average tenure is 3 years. Just a little bit over 3 years, so they're young. I mean, it's, there's a desire to advance and do new things very quickly, and sometimes based on our staff, and 3 years is pretty quick to advance and go to special units, but that's a trend we see with a lot of our young officers. We have a lot of opportunity. Just with every move that we make, there's a consequence to it or a reaction to it. It's you move somebody here, it affects over here, so we really have to kind of forward think on that.
Is there a minimum age for a sworn officer?
21. I also mentioned how we stay engaged with people that are in the system, 60 that are in process or we haven't heard from, and that's what they've done a really good job to keep that connectivity and keep people engaged. What we also see a lot of times with the folks that enter the portal, we're not the only application they've put in, so we're on the clock. So we recognize that very much as far as being efficient from application to hire. We know we're competing against, other agencies. Sometimes they're up front and tell us, and sometimes they kind of keep their cards close to the vest because they're just kind of leveraging, see where they fall. A quick look at just the hiring process. It takes 30 to 45 days, depending on the experience and the certification levels. That we can shave that off. There's some things that are required that we can't waive. Background investigation is one of them. The Criminal Justice Academy requires that. Urinalysis and medical screen, the city requires that. And things that we can waive, depending on the situation, is a written examination, a polygraph, and PT testing. And again, that's not going to get waived for people that don't have any experience or certification, but there are situations where we're hiring somebody right back or whatever, we can waive that and speed that up.
So what you're
considerably.
outlining here is for a new recruit, not
Yes,
for a transfer or certified.
Correct.
What's it take for you to get a certified officer into the system?
It depends really where the certification is, but just for example, let's just say it's just a neighboring agency. It's as quick as they can do the application. We'll do the interview and get them in the hiring cycle, either the very next hiring cycle. It's a pretty quick process. They do a great job expediting. I'll come in some mornings and they're standing there waiting for me to sign a letter. So we, it's weeks, not months. This next slide is a kind of a start to finish snapshot of our onboarding with the academy. So we have, what we just shared with you is 4 to 6 weeks. Then they're hired. We do an 8 to 10 week BCS class, meaning we in-house BCS. And then during that, they do the 4 weeks. The academy is allowing us to do 4 weeks of training in-house now, which has expedited how quickly we can move people through the academy. And then they enter the academy.
You- Your people to train.
We do.
And they give you the credit for that 4 weeks?
Yes, sir. So what used to be a 12-week academy class is now 8. And a couple of things have happened with this. It's created it's created more frequency for running people through the academy, so it increases capacity. It allows us to do some of the prerequisite testing and preparation, so they're more successful on the testing. And then, of course, when we, based on how we do our BCS, when they go to the academy, we rarely have a failure. It's not completely unheard of, but it's very, very low, and we get a lot of compliments from the director in the academy about the quality of the applicant we send, just how they're prepared for it. It's a waste of everybody's time if we send somebody there and they're not going to be able to, cut the mustard on testing and performance. And then when they're done with the academy, they come back out and they have another 46 business days of work to do field training. The one thing that I would say, you asked about the training staff, they do a remarkable job with how they move people through this process, because, we don't have the luxury of saying hiring 15 people, training 15 people as a group, sending 15 people to the academy. It's just not the way our hiring is. We're doing onesies, twosies, 4, 5 at a time. We average about 6. So every couple of weeks, we're always inserting somebody into the training regiment. So it's really a logistics challenge for them, is getting them plugged in, getting them prepared and ready for the academy. And they do an exceptional job. They're like any other unit in the department. They're tasked with, they have a tough time with staffing too, so they're doing more with less. But I just wanted to say that. I will say the academy they're doing a great job. They recognize this shortage throughout the state of personnel, and with 15 classes a year, they have capacity to handle anything we throw at them. And so it's, once upon a time you would hear a lot of, we can't get people registered in the academy and through the academy. That's not something that we can honestly say now.
Where do you do your training, at headquarters or Bluff Road, or?
We have an off-site, River Hill. We want to improve that, by the way. But we have an off-site that has a computer lab and where they do their classroom. We have another site they do their defensive tactics, and then of course we do our own range work, and then they do a physical fitness routine every day as well. So we kind of move them around a lot, and we do all of our defensive driving, what we call emergency operation driving, out at McIntyre. We use their one of their
Runways.
yeah. This next focus area, maybe the most important, is our marketing. Earlier this year, we partnered with a marketing firm, NP4, to really develop a strategy for our new hires. What? So we've recently completed a new video. I want to show that to you. We've completed the 9 recruiting fairs that I just mentioned. We've done over 6,000 direct emails to transitioning out military personnel across the country, done radio advertising, signage, and posters. This video and our pay plans down on our website, and we're in the process of doing some website updates. But Erica, if you can hit that video, this is
Honor Guard.
In a larger city, you may not know the officer that's working next to you. You may not know the sergeant or the corporal who's above you. Here in CPD, if you don't know someone, a lot of times they're coming to introduce themselves to you because they want to know who you are. So yeah, I do feel a lot of support coming in as a brand new officer. I absolutely love the family feel of a department, because who's got your back better than family?
I get thanked a lot for being out in the community, walking, being a police officer. It's not like I did anything special or anything like that. You're doing your job, but you do get thanked from the community. They're grateful.
up against a lot of larger cities as far as interaction with law enforcement. I think we're on the positive side, we're not on the negative side. And even if people wanted to get into law enforcement in larger cities, I would tell them come here first. Down south, you'll tend to find people who are a little bit easier to talk to than some of the northerners.
You have opportunities to grow, opportunities to try out different things and advance your career. I was interested in SWAT, K-9, and I was able to do all of those things 26 years later, and I'm still here.
Columbia has so many different offerings. The bars downtown, the university and the college life, riverfront parks where you can go and you can just enjoy being outdoors.
There's an endless amount of overtime opportunities, from working the St. Patrick's Day Festival, athletic events, their baseball team, the Fireflies Stadium. Every day is something different. It's nice to just not have a desk job where it gets mundane and boring doing the same thing.
The department has my back, and that's what's pushing me to go further. You've got a family of blue. I may be riding in a car by myself, but I'm not alone.
Your backup is close, you've got those close community connections, you're gonna have people that are willing to aid you to better their community. It's a great place to be.
You have to experience this for yourself. Come find your center at the Columbia Police Department.
Excellent. Good job.
So where do you put that?
So we met with one of our TV stations today, or yesterday, excuse me. It's on our website. They're working on taking, I think, 8 snippets from it we're really wanting to increase our social media presence with it. Just creating different links to it. I mean, it's so well done. It's from the heart.
Text messaging, literally you can send a link of that on a text message to all these folks who are in the network for thing and say, hey, here's an opportunity.
Major's gonna hit on some of that here in just a second.
I'll also say Facebook is
Yes, sir.
And then like geotagging too, if someone searches law enforcement or whatever, and you can have a specialized Google ad.
Yep,
And it's pretty cheap, so.
Those are a couple of our highlights. He's going to just mention that so Officer Atwood, what was pretty incredible to me with this, and I completely stayed out of it and just let them create this. And they didn't have to, they told these officers, this is what we're really wanting to focus on. And that was from their heart. I mean, it really was.
You could tell it wasn't scripted.
Yeah, it was impactful.
Chief, I will point out, I'm not sure that there's technically bars. They're hospitality outlets, so maybe changing that to nightlife instead of bars might be a.
Well, and I saw you kind of twitching when you saw fireworks over with the Fireflies. I know Cottontown probably appreciated that.
No, he was thinking about his call from his favorite neighbor over in University Hill saying, we need to have fireworks with no boom.
Yeah.
So Major, how about stepping up here and just hitting on what's underway right now with marketing? Don't screw it up.
33 years, by the way, be technical. I appreciate that. And actually, I say that because it means a lot. Chief's just celebrated his 9th year. I can testify a little bit better about the support from the city of Columbia over the course of 33 years, and it is greatly appreciated, and certainly, without question, over the last 9 years. I love this profession. I love the city of Columbia, and I'm still here because of that, because of the support and what the profession itself means to me, and what CPD and the city of Columbia mean to me. So with that, the city manager said it best, I think. Challenging is an understatement where we are with marketing, but it's still, there was a time, before I get into this, there was a time when it wasn't as challenging. It is still, a job of nobility. It is still the most dangerous job there is. And there was a time when the danger part of it could be mitigated. Nobility, the idea, the concept of nobility outweighed everything else for a lot of people 20, 30 years ago. And maybe not so long ago, not so much now. So our challenges are many. What we're willing to pay people, isn't everything. It's not everything. It's more deep rooted. So how do we get our message out there? Well, so let me just start with saying this. We have a void that we're trying to fill with our marketing manager. And we are very close to doing that. We are interviewing this week, and we have some very good candidates for that position. So what I've learned, my personal takeaway from this is, over the course of 33 years, where I felt like I've done it all, know it all, the ins and outs, and marketing, I tell you, is a dynamic that I've never really had to consider the way I am now, or we, I should say. There are, yourself included, sir. There's just so many different approaches, to marketing and, getting your message out. And I think you all know that, but I can't overemphasize that. So as the chief said, we met with NP a few months ago with my first conversation with them. And then we've developed a narrative over the course of time and developed a strategy. And, from the very beginning, our approach has been, because of those challenges, we wanted to make sure that we promote the profession. Certainly, because the profession, as you all know and have said, the profession itself has really taken a hit over the last 5 years. So we're trying to promote the profession itself, but more than that, promote the City of Columbia and the City of Columbia Police Department. How do we do that in concert? So we developed a strategy that we thought was best with their help in collaboration throughout the department and outside the department. And what you see in front of you is, for lack of a better way to put it, it's kind of our phase two. When we met with NP, the strategy development part was part of phase one. And of course, the flyer, the leave behind, if you will, the video was part of the phase one deliveries or deliverables that we wanted to see. And this is where we are now. So someone had mentioned, Facebook and some other things. So one of the terms that I've learned since getting into the marketing sphere is BITS. And, in that marketing world, the language is behavioral intended targets. And that's kind of what they utilize, to get our message out and to get it out in such a way that, we want to make sure we spend our money wisely on things that are going to have a return, whether it's a billboard, whether it's a social media platform, whether it's a commercial ad or a handout or anything, whatever the case may be. We want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and spending the money that you all have graciously given us to do this. So what you see in front of you is, we are going to target Facebook, LinkedIn, again, behavioral intended targets. Those things will be used in banner and video ads bought online. There'll be contextual ads that appear in articles and that are discussing police issues. That can be, law enforcement articles such as Police One or police.com, to literally to National Geographic, wherever it is you may see or have or find to read an article concerning police. We want to target that based on the readers. Who are the readers reading, those articles or those books or those handouts? So, in addition to those social media sites and geofencing those areas, some of the things that we are doing is we just recently met with Watch Fox, and develop some conversation about getting some airtime. Someone asked about the video. Where would we play that video? That's certainly one of those places. And I will say this, we are also in the process, I should say, of developing a second video, a more dynamic video, if you will. One of the things that we want to do is kind of like how I started off by saying that we wanted to focus on the profession in concert with the City of Columbia and the police department. We want to develop a second video that hits on all three of those things, but has less talk and more visual. And that's what we're gonna focus on, which, I think can be utilized in probably a few more different types of platforms and certainly outside of the region. We're also in partnership with Gamecock Network, as well as Grace Outdoor, and creating some static and digital billboards. Those things are in progress. And the Chief had mentioned our updating and modernization of our website. That is also in progress. So I think I probably overstepped my time limit, but any,
Just out of curiosity, Major, a lot of this y'all been doing from because it's all about getting applications, is my understanding. You need more applications so that you get more hits and so forth. How are these targeting with the applications? Are they from localized area, state area? Are you seeing it outside at this point? Because one of the things that I want to make sure is that we don't limit ourselves into where we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're playing ping pong with Lexington and Richland. That doesn't solve the problem. So I just, as you're continuing to create these relationships with Fox or Watch, you got a bunch of affiliates. Who can we connect with in these target areas? Utilize make them do the work for you is what I'm trying to say, so that you can make sure you're getting a stronger reach. And when you're ready to do the pop-ups and stuff, that those guys are calling their affiliates to create a buzz about it. Utilizing that atmosphere, because I think the one thing that we have to do is expand. And I think that's what you're doing here, is expanding, but continuing to get that, because I do fear we're just, like every other agency, we're just pulling from each other. If you look at the departures, how many of those are all localized?
Same thing with billboards, taking advantage of up and down 95, some of the areas where you see interstate travel, but also, Fayetteville is on the way, and so you have that military connection. I think we could get some folks that way, and we're not just focused on city proper.
Miami put billboards in Portland and all the cities wherever they were having problems. Hey, come here. It's sunny, it's warm, and we got good pay.
I'm sure it would.
Well, I was gonna make a comment too. I think what I would do too is I would develop a similar page to this called messaging. So you got marketing and messaging, so if the chief was on WIS once a week on Wednesday morning, talking about the city of Columbia and talking about the great things that we're doing, that's good messaging that ties into good marketing. So I just think there's a ways to, and that video was amazing. And I think that's a good step. And what you do is you keep working on how to take that marketing and turn it into messaging that really ends up connecting with people. Then you have somebody that says, that's what I want to do when I get out of high school. That's what I want to do when I get out of college, versus, having more of a, I like that, but it doesn't do anything. So it's just taking it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps different and tightening up that message where everybody's on the same page. And you can have somebody on Soda City Live, and there's a whole bunch of opportunities.
Any one of us, if we tighten, you give us a few bullets, and then that's a great point.
And it'll
In our
really make a
spheres of
difference.
influence.
Really make a
Yeah.
difference.
thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yep, absolutely.
Chief, let me ask you something. Sure. So, grassroots, homegrown talent, whether it's growing small businesses or retaining the talent that's here in the Midlands for all we do. How is the relationship with Midlands Tech and that pre-Justice Academy certificate program? Is there any more we could push to really collaborate with, say, a criminal justice major to lead into a wonderful pipeline that feeds from that two-year degree right into a job with not only CPD, but this could be big for all law enforcement in the Midlands.
So I think those are certainly opportunities for us to try at Midlands Tech. One of the not a challenge, but the fact you got to be 21 and it's so beneficial if we can grab them early. Our cadet program now is we're up to 3, and we're working with Missy C to look at ways we can expand that. And we'll have to work with HR on that, but we have a lot of interest in that, and that is, I think that is a great proving ground for us. But the other thing that I think is going to be important, and this has a budgetary impact as well, as we've really got to increase paid internship opportunities with our HBCUs and the university. If you can pay a wage and keep them engaged. We've got a lot of recent hires that have cycled through us in the summertime.
Can they do some of the work that we talked about earlier?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there are some opportunities there without question that, I think that's something we got to think a little bit out of the box on, but there's some really good innovative programs that PERF is sponsoring with scholarship-wise with HBCUs. I think we can replicate that here.
Well, I just want to reiterate, don't be afraid to try it. Don't be afraid to ask for it. Look, this is our future. We got to build it up, and we got to be creative and different than everybody else. So, y'all don't be shy. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to try it.
I mean, as a
support from us.
Absolutely, and just to somebody in the training program gets paid, correct? They are getting paid to be in that program.
Cadets get paid too.
So a hybrid of a criminal justice free tuition from Midlands Tech with a actual paid gig to an ultimate career is I think would be very attractive to individuals. So if there's anything we can do to help those conversations.
They can get qualified for the lottery money to pay all the tuition.
Yeah.
We had this young fellow named Robert Stewart that was less than 21 when he wanted to go to work for the town of Cheraw. And we put him to work. He was in charge of the meter enforcement until he reached 21. Went on to become the police chief, public safety director, and SLED director. So you need to incentivize these young people. And like the mayor said, they could do a lot of this
Great
stuff
idea. Yeah.
before they're 21 as some sort of officer.
Chief Stewart's still very engaged with law enforcement communities, big advocate for us at the State House.
He's a great fellow.
Absolutely.
The last area that I'm going to maybe just tee up for, was there any more questions on it? Last thing I want to hit on, and I'll tee it up for Missy, is to talk about special events. As I mentioned at the very beginning, that's something that's pretty unique to us, just the number of events that we host every single week. Festivals, races, sporting events, it's massive. Just CPD alone, we participated last year in 321 events and over 15,000 man hours. So that challenges us. And one of the things that I don't think is thought about very often too is we also vetted 389 one-time special alcohol permits. So we're, with Inspector Crowley that you all have met over time, he really vets that every time. It's not to say that we weren't vetting it before, but it's more of a robust process. We're just not taking any chances on that. And so I tee that up for Missy because this certainly touches us. These are 321 direct contact events that we're at, whether it's one officer at an event or 50 officers at an event. It's taxing. Sometimes we're competing against ourselves on that. And but there's other city departments that are equally taxed, whether it's Public Works, who do a lot at these events. I mean, on the front end and on the back end, they do a remarkable job. I mean, what they do after St. Patrick's Day is incredible. It is incredible. I mean, what they did.
After the protest.
I was getting ready to say that. I mean, it was unbelievable what the staff does. I mean, it's holidays. I mean, I'll be at the pumps or something. You'll see them rolling in. I mean, they do an incredible job and just don't get recognized for it. But so it touches a lot of other city departments, and I know Missy's going to talk about that. But the one thing I will leave you with, because we've talked about it before, is I think they're expensive, but I think something to consider again is ballards, permanent ballards for downtown
100%.
and for 5 Points. Whether it's flooding or some of our flood-prone areas, those are things that require us to respond or us to man. If you look at downtown, we're posting vehicles and we're posting people at barricades. If you could pop up ballards.
It works in other places. The automatic ballard's about 10 grand. It's worth every dime to do that. Especially, I mean, you looked at this past Saturday. I mean, we had football events. You had, Soda City was 5 blocks long.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to see. I mean, it's what people talk about, but things that we could do to lessen the impact or load on city services, I think are some things to consider.
And then we're just sort of teeing it up today and not to go too deeply into the discussion of the structure as well. It's pretty much housed with CPD, so that's why the chief is touching on it. But I asked Ashley and Missy to do a little research. We've done this before. We've done the Green Bull. Over the years, we've had stops and starts at looking at special events holistically, an office of special events, realigning some things. I want to put all that back on the table, but before I go all in on it, I just want to have, y'all's feedback and make sure that incorporating a fee structure for some of these tasks is something that, you all are comfortable with, so.
I just wrote down, start charging money.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we
Yes,
talked about
sir.
yesterday at our
We
meeting.
did. We
I
did.
mean, nobody in the world works for free anymore.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's just-
Absolutely.
Nobody does.
Absolutely. And I think because the city has always done it and does it really well, I don't even know that citizens think about that. Some may think we, somehow we're paying for this, and it's all about the narrative and just explaining it to people. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Again, thank you all for patience with us on this and supporting us. And Ms. Wilson, thank you for keeping our rear ends in gear, pushing us hard on this. I know it's urgent.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, well, actually, 2 more questions. Number one, if you had a magic wand or magic wands to hire 99 people, what would they be?
What would they?
Hire those positions, what would those magic wands be? And the second question is, are we ever really gonna be able to hire those 99 people?
Well, that's a tough question. So I think what our study is going to show is that that we probably need additional positions, which is really a mute discussion because we can't fill the positions we are. I think it's critical that we look at some alternative response models. And I think we've got to create equity with our regions, and your fellow council, that they know this now, they've heard me talk about, but our regions right now are divided along council lines. And I think once upon a time that had some utility, but it really, it doesn't serve its purpose anymore. We really want to create boundaries, and then we got to have another, discussion about facilities and how that impacts our, recruiting and retention. But I don't know. I kind of gave a political answer. I don't know if
Well, I guess, I mean,
Facilities
but this is,
and-
but this is, it's a big thing when someone says, hey, we're, 99 positions short. That sounds like a lot. It is a lot.
It is a lot.
Then I mean, at some point, if there's no magic bullet to fill those positions, then that obviously facilitates what you're saying, which is when we're unlikely to be able to fill those positions, therefore we have to do things differently.
Yeah, there's a sweet spot that we got to hit though. but just because of capacity, we cannot continue to sustain this operational tempo with the staffing we got. I mean, we're just hitting critical mass on that. So that's why there's so much urgency with this hiring. I think as we start chipping away at that, I think we're gonna get to a point where we're starting this, we're seeing that balance, and we can make some, maybe some decisions on strategically how we move forward in terms of our service delivery.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all.
We're just gonna fly through these next few slides. Again, I really wanted to just put the initial information out to you all, and then get a feel for if you want us to, go a little bit deeper to actually develop a fee schedule. Chief talked about already the myriad of events, the volume of the events, many with alcohol beverage permits. Next slide, when we get into just again, an overview, next slide. And Missy, I'll let you take it from here regarding, the purpose, and the next slide that talks about the type of events.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. As Chief has mentioned, and Ms. Wilson as well, of course, the City of Columbia gratefully has a lot of events and activities that are going on in our communities. We're very happy to host and be a site for many events and communities. Part of what we also want to acknowledge is that various city departments assist with these different events and different activities, usually at no charge or no cost to the community, to the hosting event.
Why is that?
So there's a variety. Some events there are, obviously, and we'll go through what some of those things are. Some of it's culture, some of it's, there's a myriad of reasons. And you'll see, I think Ashley has given you a list of the events that she's put together from different departments in terms of the services that are provided. Of course, we're here to serve the public, but then again, that is meant the broader public. So when you're providing service to a specific population, usually in a lot of other places, there's user fees associated with those specific functions. So of course, our goal and discussion for here is to be able to assist the organizations. So planning events for safe and fun events and negative impact on both the community and those public resources. As Chief mentioned, we have a variety of departments to provide the services, and we'll go through what some of those are. Some of the events, and we've asterisked those because some of these events do charge for fees or do charge services. It just depends on what the function is or where it's being held. But block parties, concerts, it depends on which service is being provided. College and university events, festivals, walks and runs. As you know, there's a walk and run just about every weekend in Columbia. Neighborhood associations, different nonprofit events, parades that can go on, public and private gatherings. Those can be parties, private parties. To also protest and picketing, religious events, and of course other different types of road closures.
That's right.
The types of services that are provided at these events include that, first we also want to distinguish what types of events we are collecting user fees for. Of course, rental of a city facility is associated with a cost. Police services, as Chief mentioned, usually those are the special duty, those are done as an additional.
That's grocery stores, churches, stuff like that.
It can be whatever, and the host organization pays those costs to the office, through the city to the officers.
Which is, we're vastly undercharging for that, by the way.
Yes, that is part of the chief's analysis, and
I think we're at $5 and we ought to be at 50.
Right, and we have some information on those prior.
Now, is that a price per hour or just a set price?
Price per hour.
That's nothing.
We're the cheapest in the entire state on that. A lot of cities have moved to $50, and $5 of that goes to the city just to help with.
Right.
Because we supply the cars and the gas and everything else just to help offset. But I think there's a couple of things we'll talk about during the budget session outside of this too, that we provide a service for, that we really ought to be charging something to cover our staff time and just to throw to be thinking about things, you know, we're gonna have to look at some of these, the, services that are provided.
And that was Ms. Wilson's intent with the discussion from the chief in the sense of the special events and the activities, the demand on the police department, as the chief mentioned, a lot of those same demands impact other departments. And without an equipment charge or those other costs, those other services are often not included in that fee or structure.
Look, bollards, we ought to invest the money either through, you know, if it can be used from accommodations or hospitality, that's where it invested. Flood prevention was some of it. I mean, if you think about the hours you spend during that, I mean, the last major rain that we had this summer, July 4th, I mean, we had not only officers, fire marshals, we had fire trucks, we had public works, we had stuff stationed all over town, blocking people from driving through the damn flooded area.
Right. Our parade permits that are handled through the police department, that's a single point of entry at that point, but they're $5, I think, and that was, been here probably when Major Drafts was
$5.
first hired, was the fee for parade permits.
This list needs to be much longer.
Oh, yes.
Like, this is,
This is just a sample of the types of things. And of course, fire prevention and fire marshal is similar to the police and some of the services they provide.
Missy.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this, Missy, catastrophic events that would sort of bring in a cadre of folk into a certain area. Is that a fee? Will a fee be charged?
No,
Okay,
that's different.
and I think that's the delineating line we need to talk through and talk about. Not only what the fee amount is, but what about,
Ain't nobody having a parade over a hurricane, I promise you.
well, you're right. But you have got places where it may not be a hurricane, it could very well be another catastrophic event.
Sure. I think you raise a good point in the sense the types of events range from very social fun activities to picketing and protest. And then the variations of the services provided, vary from event to event. And then the types of fees that you would charge, of course.
All right.
And of course, Reverend McDowell, when we have gone into, disaster mode and, later mitigation,
That's different.
that's Harry's shop, and we're documenting and we seek reimbursement for things from the state or federal government that we're eligible for, so that's different.
Okay.
And of course, our user fees, all right, so moving on to types of services that are performed, delivery of barricades. That is probably one of the top types of activities and services that are provided. While it's maybe a low-cost activity, it's still an activity, it's still a staff time, it's staff resources to go deliver those deliver the barricades and pick the barricades back up. So it is definitely an impact. Use of mobile sound stage and systems often, not always the case, but there are some instances where mobile stages and the sound systems are not charged. Facility grounds and setup, again, that is one of the areas where there are obviously some fees charged, but not in all cases. Traffic control and management. Public safety at special events to include police, fire marshal type services. And of course, as mentioned, these services incorporate the use of both staff time and staff resources, whether it's a vehicle or electricity or other types of equipment. This is just a description or just a little graphic in the sense of the types of events in terms of the frequency. So some of these are ad hoc or as needed. They may be a one-time event that won't happen again. Then there's a variety of events that happen monthly, a variety of events that happen quarterly, weekly, and of course yearly. And then you can see the different departments that are involved in providing those services. The things that are happening like weekly, even though it shows on here as low, then that's because there's a few number of events that happen weekly. But if you think about Soda City is a weekly event. It brings out a lot of people, so of course it also requires a lot, involvement from a lot of different city resources. In terms of what we're seeing from other cities, around the state and around in other states. Rental fees for traffic control, use of barricade signs, of course, they make some variation that if the organization picks up those activities themselves, then there's no charge, but if the city is delivering them and picking them back up, there's a cost associated with that. Roll cart rental and delivery, we're delivering the roll carts, then we're bringing back the filled roll carts and doing the disposal of that. So there's a cost on to the city to be able to perform that. Event venue and setup, equipment usage. We're seeing even events for filming, commercial filming, photographs. I mean, there's some cities that if you want to take photos at specific parks, you have to get a permit and pay a fee if you're there doing a photo shoot.
That's pretty common. Even for like Robert Mills Historic District.
So that's just an example of some of the different types of events and charges that we see in other communities that are types of costs that, or charges that are being done. As far as the city, our next steps would be, depending upon, the direction from City Council, Ms. Wilson, is, continuing to work with departments in terms of gathering what the fee structure would be, incorporating what, gathering the costs.
We have to post all that, correct?
Yes, sir. Notice.
I think y'all need to move forward and come back with options on all that's out there from that. I think I know Robert, my request at some point looked at the bollards. I think we need to bring that back up and talk about that and where that makes the most sense to relieve, especially in places like Main Street where we have multiple events all year round, other places.
I think process is important here. Who's the point of contact to engage all these potential, I guess, boxes that you gotta check? And I think we've talked about that before.
Ms. Wilson, may I ask?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Once we go through that process of discerning what that fee structure might look like, what happens after that? Is it automatically incorporated into, or do we look at whether it's $35 or $50, whether it's $50 or $100? Will there be some input?
Yes, sir. We would bring it back to you all first, and then we would, as
To have a
the
public
mayor was
hearing.
saying, we'd have to have a
Just want to understand
hearing.
that process.
Yes, sir. Part of the budget approval for this upcoming budget year.
So the projected income for fees.
It's really about breaking even. I don't think it's about income. It's about covering our costs. I mean, fuel, man hours, this and that. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. You're not trying to make money. We're not in the rental business, but we're not in a losing business either. I mean, we need to.
And that's my point. We're not in the losing business. But we also want to be in a position where we equitably
Yes,
make
sir.
sure our fees
Absolutely.
are in sync with
Yes, sir.
whatever somebody else is doing.
That's right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely.
But I also think that working for free is never appreciated.
No.
And that's part of this is,
Have skin in the game.
yeah, right. I mean, this is real stuff. And working for free is not the way.
We look forward to your recommendations.
Yeah.
I have one other question.
Freedom ain't free.
Because we got a request about waiving, I'm not gonna say what organization, waiving the police fees for an event that's coming up. That's not anything that
We never do that.
and I wanna make sure because that money actually would go to officers who are.
That goes directly to
It goes
them.
directly to them. I just wanna
And
make
if you
sure.
get those, you just send those my way or the chief's way. We'll handle it.
Oh, I wanna do it.
Okay, go for it.
No, I wanna do it.
I'm gonna send it your way.
Yeah. Noted yesterday.
I just wanted to make sure I was on target, yeah.
Okay.
I was on target.
You got it, Tina. Take care of it.
We really appreciate you all's feedback. It's helpful and it helps us to keep moving forward to June 30. Have all this lined up.
That you're gonna look at the structure that the other cities use for handling
That's
events.
We are, yes,
Green
we're gonna
stuff.
refresh our look, because we've looked, and I think we kinda know, but we wanna take another look and make sure and tighten it up and Chief's already realigning some things in his shop and, want to look at Signal 30 and how it's handled as well, as far as maybe outside entity helping him, manage that equitably as well. So lots of good things. Mhm. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. See you.